So in this session we're going to talk about ME/CFS and beliefs. The reason I'm going to talk about this topic is beliefs are powerful. If you have ME/CFS, long COVID, fibromyalgia, related conditions, I invite you to consider this question. Do your beliefs hinder or support recovery? In this session, I'm going to talk about how beliefs are formed, how we can spot unhelpful beliefs and change them, how we can cultivate beliefs that support us and may support recovery. So why is this topic important? As I've said, beliefs can actually hinder or help us. If, let's say, someone overdoes it and they're stressing about that, they're activating the sympathetic state, they're saying, I've overdone it, will I ever recover? Often when we ask a question, we answer it in some way. So maybe they're saying, maybe I won't recover. Now that's causing them more stress. And that's actually going to hinder the body's attempts to heal. Some of the mistakes people make around beliefs, number one, is that they believe their limiting beliefs. They believe that they can't change their beliefs. And that results in them feeling helpless and hopeless. Actually, there's an opportunity here. We can change our beliefs and cultivate more helpful beliefs. And by doing so, we're activating the parasympathetic state that supports the body's healing. So for example, if someone's saying, I've overdone it, but they actually choose to look at that situation in a more useful way, they might say, okay, I've overdone it. I am human. I'm going to make mistakes. It's okay. I'm in a bit of a dip, but I will come out of it. Then they're going to be activating the parasympathetic state. That's going to support the body's healing. And that means they're going to come out of the dip more quickly than if they're stressing. Research tells us that stress hinders our recovery. So, at the end of this session, I will tell you how you can get a cheat sheet which is about reframing, which is what we've just done. We've looked at how to reframe the situation. It's a powerful technique. So at the end, I'll tell you how you can get that cheat sheet. So Abby says hi from Mexico. Lovely to see you, Abby, on the call. And hello from Lynn. I know where you're from, Lynn, as well. So what do we need to do? We need to embrace that idea that beliefs are powerful. So what is the evidence that beliefs are powerful? First piece of evidence, and feel free to pop your answer in the chat, whether you're watching live or replay. If you're watching the replay, just put #replay so I know. But what are your thoughts about that? What evidence do we have that beliefs are powerful? One example of that is religion. People go to war over their beliefs. Another very fascinating example of the power of beliefs is the placebo effect. So the placebo effect is the effect produced by the belief. Lynn's saying she has to go. That's fine, Lynn, not to worry. You can watch the replay. So the placebo effect is the effect produced by the power of belief. So we know that if you give people an inert pill, but people think it's a powerful drug, then for some people, they experience the benefit of that supposed drug. Okay, so those benefits have come not from the pill, but from the person's belief. And this research into placebo has come up with some interesting information. So for instance, if you give people a sedative and it's a blue pill, it will have a greater placebo effect than if it's just a white pill or even a red pill. If the drug is a stimulant and you give people a placebo that is red, it's more likely to have a greater placebo effect than if it's a white tablet or a blue tablet. We know that if you give people a capsule, it has a greater placebo effect than just a white tablet, because people perceive a capsule as being, more advanced technology. And we know if you give people surgery, sham surgery, but they believe that it's going to have a beneficial effect, then again you're going to create that placebo effect. So there's a very interesting study where a surgeon, very famous surgeon, who performed operations on people's knees, and he split the patients into two groups. One, he performed the surgery. One, they did sham surgery. They actually made a small incision. They pretended they were doing the surgery. They actually talked about the procedure, whilst the person was unconscious. And what they found is when they followed these people up, that there was no difference in the two groups. Both achieved the same rates of success for the surgery. And it's only when they told people 2 years later that they'd received some sham surgery, an interesting thing happened. For some people, they said, wow, aren't I amazing? Because they realised it was them that had produced that result. But for some people, the problem that they'd had in the knee actually returned. So that's fascinating. There's another bit of research that found in Japan, there's this poison ivy. For some people, if their skin is brushed with this poison ivy, they get a rash. So they blindfolded these boys. They brushed their arm with the poison ivy, but they told them it was a harmless branch, and there was no reaction. They brushed the other arm with a harmless branch, but they told them it was a poisoned ivy, and they had a skin reaction. There's another study, and this is a medically documented case where a doctor had a patient who was allergic to roses, and he showed her a rose, and she started having an allergic reaction. The interesting thing is that rose was made of plastic. Okay, so what does that tell you about the power of belief? So Abby says, I'm happy to be here, but can hardly write. I'm very ill. I'm hopeful for recovery. If I can heal, anyone can. Yeah, so Abby, if you can't write, just you relax, just watch the session and just allow yourself to just relax and conserve your energy, okay? It's completely fine, but appreciate your input. And another example of the power of beliefs that's very fascinating is the 4-minute mile. So if you've got any ideas why the 4-minute mile is an interesting example of the power of beliefs, then pop your thoughts in the chat. But I will tell you anyway. So there was the belief at one point that a human being could not run a mile in under 4 minutes. That belief was shattered when Roger Bannister in the 1950s, I think, ran a mile in under 4 minutes. And what was really interesting is within a couple of months of him breaking the 4-minute mile, other people did it also. There are now, I believe, 1,500 people who've run a mile in under 4 minutes. Okay, so they're just some examples of the power of belief. So what we need to do is to understand, number one, the origin of our beliefs, how to identify beliefs, and how to change beliefs. There's a psychologist, I read this many years ago, so I can't remember the name of the psychologist. I've probably got a book somewhere with his name in it. But he said that most people have the same thoughts as yesterday. And most of those thoughts aren't very helpful. Okay? So consider the origin of beliefs. Where do our beliefs come from? One way that beliefs originate is that we're told a belief. So I call this the Santa effect. Children are told in the existence of Santa, or told that Santa exists, and they believe it. And actually sometimes children are told things that are not very helpful. You're stupid, you're unlovable, and they believe it because they don't know any different. And actually I've worked with Adults who've been told things by bosses who are not very skilled at their job. You're incompetent, you're not good at your job. And I remember working with one person who'd been told that. He worked for a really big firm. He was a senior person. And when we started looking at it, what he realised is his boss was kind of playing games because she was getting him to do a task, a project, but not giving him clear guidelines, and then criticising the work he'd done. And this boss did it with lots of people. So it was a pattern, and he actually decided that he was going to challenge his boss and say, look, I'm aware that we're wasting company time because I haven't got clear parameters for what you want. So let's get really clear of the parameters. Then I can get the job done more quickly, and that'll be good for you and me and the firm. And this person started behaving better. But, sometimes we're told stuff, especially when we're young, and we believe the things that we're told, even if they're not very helpful, and even if that person who's telling us those things is not behaving in a resourceful way. Another way we can learn and install beliefs is via observation. For instance, if a young child sees a parent seeing a mouse and screaming and jumping on a chair, then they believe that mice are scary. And then we can learn by deduction. Maybe if that child sees a rat, they think, oh, rats are like mice and mice are scary, so maybe rats are scary as well. And we can also learn by experience. So, for instance, maybe a child is trying to open a door and they're not managing, and finally they pull the handle of the door and open the door, and they create this belief, in order to open a door, you need to turn the handle and either pull it or push the door. So they have this belief, and that serves them well until they come across a sliding door, and then they realise that they need a new strategy. And we can install beliefs via interpretation. So imagine a child accidentally breaks a vase, and the mother runs in and she's upset because the vase was very special, was given to her by her grandmother. Now the mother's upset, and the child sees the distress of the mother, and the child experiences distress in their body. And because they haven't got the capacity to process those emotions that they're experiencing and the physical sensations they're experiencing, they come out of their body and into their mind, and they create a belief. Maybe I'm bad, I'm unlovable because I've done this bad thing. And so they don't learn self-regulation. They don't learn how to deal with their physical sensations and emotions. Imagine another scenario where the mother actually sees that the child's upset and comforts the child and says, look, I'm upset because I really love that vase, but I know you're trying to help. And maybe they were sweeping the floor and accidentally knocked the vase over. And so the child learns that actually they are okay, they are lovable, they calm their physiology. And that's the kind of first step towards learning self-regulation. So that's something about the origins of beliefs. Let's talk a bit about how we identify beliefs. So, what I've just described is, and this is something I've talked about in other videos, is the relationship we have between our body and the physical sensations and emotions. So when the child saw that the mother was upset, they had physical stress in their body, which was driven by some emotion. And actually what they did is they went to their mind and they created some thought. And that thought resulted in feelings. So feelings come from the mind, whereas emotions come from the body. And let's say someone has made a mistake, they're feeling bad, someone's been judgmental, they might feel shame, anger, upset towards themselves. That might result in a behaviour, a comforting behaviour. For instance, their strategy for dealing with distress might be to go and eat some chocolate. Okay? So all these things are behaviours, are feelings, are a way of helping us identify our beliefs. Because if we have a behaviour, we can work backwards and say, what feeling is present here? What thinking am I doing here? What is the belief that's driving that thinking? And so, for instance, going back to that example I used earlier, if someone's saying, I've overdone it, and they're stressed, what belief might they have? So pop your answer in the chat if you're able. If you have overdone it and you're experiencing stress, what belief would you guess that you might be generating? What thought might you be having? Might it be, oh no, I'm never going to get well, or I'm so stupid for overdoing it, I'm bad, I'm wrong. Okay, so we can start to get clear on the beliefs. Maybe I'm thinking, oh, I'm never going to get well. Okay, obviously that's not a very helpful belief, and in the video I posted the other day, you can find it on YouTube or on my Facebook page, I talked about how our beliefs, how they can be problematic in that we might have a belief I'm never going to get well. We haven't got a crystal ball. We don't know that to be true. Might be wrong. Okay, and we might not take action if we have that belief. Okay, so Abby says, I believe I won't heal. So Abby, I will keep listening, keep watching, because I'm going to talk about some strategies for shifting that belief. Okay, and I'd encourage you to watch the video that's on my YouTube channel about 3 reasons for hope. So check out that video. Okay, 3 reasons for hope. Maybe I will pop it. Let's see if I can just pop that in the chat. Okay, so check out that video on my YouTube channel. Okay, so let's look at that. How do we change beliefs? How do we shift the unhelpful beliefs and start to cultivate more useful beliefs? So, strategy number 1 is that we need to look for the evidence that challenges the belief. Okay, so ask yourself that question. What is the evidence that challenges the belief? So if someone says, oh, I always overdo it, well, when didn't you overdo it? When is an example where you actually paced yourself well? If you're saying, I'll never get well, when did you see signs of progress? Okay, and actually, again, I've made a video on signs of progress, so check that video out as well. That is on my Facebook page, MECFS Explored, and also on my YouTube channel, MECFS Explored. Okay, so check out that video. And some useful questions we can ask when we have a belief is it true? Is it useful? What is the evidence that challenges that belief? The second thing we can do is actually use kind of therapeutic processes to work on our beliefs and shift our beliefs. Now that's beyond the scope of this short video, but this is something when I do the building resilience training, this is what I teach people how to do that. And the third thing we can do, which is something we've talked about already, is to use reframing. Very simply, reframing is a way of finding more useful ways of looking at things. So if someone is saying, I've overdone it, I'll never recover, then actually one way of reframing is saying, well, I haven't cracked how to pace myself well all the time, but that's okay. I don't have to be perfect. It is possible to improve my approach with effort. In fact, there are plenty of times when I have paced myself well. I'm going to keep applying the tools that I'm learning. And one strategy that I really recommend is to do some journaling, to reflect on your day. What went well? What do I learn from today? What needs work? Okay, and if we do that, that can help us really clarify what we need to focus on. Okay, I posted in my group today that when I reflected on yesterday, I wasted some time, spent time doing stuff that I really shouldn't have been doing. It wasn't a priority. And I realised I need to stick to my plan. I need to use a timer. Okay. So Abby says, maybe I'm just being a bit negative today, and that's okay. But the truth is I'm hopeful for recovery. Fantastic. Okay. And it's completely fine if sometimes you feel negative. That's just part of being human. Okay. So I'll ask you that question. How often do you reframe in that more useful way? Or how often do you kind of give yourself a hard time, beat yourself up, chastise yourself when you've overdone it, for instance? So as I say, that's an example of reframing. If you'd like to access the reframing cheat sheet where I give a number of examples of reframing, put the word reframe in the comments and tag me, type my name if you're on Facebook until it comes up, click on it. Then I'll get a notification. Feel free to send me a message if I don't see your request for that reframe cheat sheet. And if you're on YouTube, just comment below with the word reframe and I'll send you a link where you can message me and I'll send you the link to that resource. So Abby says reframe. So I'm going to pause there. Feel free, whether you're watching live or watching the replay, to just tell me one takeaway from this session today. So feel free to put that in the chat. If you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. So if you are interested in learning more about these strategies, I am going to be starting a new Building Resilience group program. If you'd like to know more about that, pop the word group in the chat, send me a private message and I'll tell you more about it. And you can decide whether it's for you. It's a 12-week program. I'm happy to discuss payment plans, etc. if that's an issue. So if you've got any questions about that, get in touch. If you've got any other questions about the topic we've talked about today, then pop them in the chat and I will respond. So if you do like this video, do share it with others. But for now, I'm going to say thanks for watching, wishing you great health, and bye for now.